Welcome to Spiritual Clearings, where we clear and transmute the energies of the collective across time, space, and dimensions. Using the Akashic Records, we access imprints from the past, present, future, past lives, and parallel realities to bring truth, clarity, and soul-level healing into the now. Let's align with the highest frequency available today, shall we? Hello, love. Candace Box here. I want to talk to you today about something so simple and yet so profound, which is flexibility. Yay! And it doesn't mean like the stretching, flexible part. It's actually the flexibility of your will, so that it can braid with the divine will of what's coming through to you. Like our soul is tempting to assume us, and our personal will is like, no, wait, I don't trust you. I have my own ways of doing things. Like, thinking that our will might know better. But that's not quite true, is it? A lot of times our will can be so rigid, so controlling, so in a way that actually doesn't allow us to assume the soul self and have these experiences that we really do prefer. So I'm going to get us started with a song. I've been digging Vandalux lately. They're one of my favorite bands, and they're EDM. And the song that I want to play for you is called Right Now. Because when we're here, right now, we're in a place where we can be open to the possibilities. And what's happening right now is when we're inflexible and we're staying in this comfort zone of what is, we've basically erected around us, that is controlled in every way, then we are unable to see what is beyond that, because we are looking and expecting for things to be a particular way. What's up, Michelle? Hi, Valerie. Thank you so much for jumping on. All right, I'm going to get us started here. So here's the song Right Now by Vandalux. Enjoy, take deep breaths, and we'll be here right now as we begin this spiritual clearing today. Here we go. Hello. Hi. Welcome. I'm very excited to talk about this today because this is something I am personally going through. Because the whole thing about flexibility is it's not necessarily about, being completely surrendered and open in a way that is like taking you to places and spaces that the world and the environment takes you. It's not about that at all. It's like holding your center and staying neutral and being able to look at all spectrums, right? Because there's many possibilities and probabilities of things occurring. And sometimes we have this linear viewpoint that says, if I do this, then I will have that and this will occur, right? But that doesn't necessarily pan out because now that we're in this wonderful quantum soup of energy, things can happen just like that. And when it happens just like that, you're like, wait, but what did I do? And you're trying to figure it out, and maybe I can replicate it. Maybe I can do the same thing over and over again to make that even more so. And yes, according to some mathematics, sometimes those probabilities are possible. However, in the quantum soup of everything, sometimes it just takes a frequency shift, right? And that shift, which might have been you've been working on for ages and even decades or even millennia, gets to a point where it's like finally everything breaks and things start to happen. Do you know what I mean? I've had this happen several times. But oftentimes, what leads us the most and what creates inflexibility is our own personal will, because our own personal will has identified with the things it's created. It's identified with the things that it experienced in a way that says, this is who I am, and this is what I've done, and this is why I'm going to go this way, because no one's going to break me, and I am heading in this direction, which then creates this rigidity, which is often on a path not from the soul path, but from a fear-based path. And what happens there is what we don't realize is a lot of the field that we live in has been created in fear, right? If you agree, say, I agree. Because what's happening is in this time, we're dissolving those fear-based beliefs. by the actions we decide to take. And a lot of them can come from this certainty, this idea of what we think and believe is to be true. And so therefore we do these things, and then we encounter these moments and times and places that we kind of get lost, because it's like, wait, this isn't what I expected. This isn't the outcome that I desired. Like, why is this not working? And then we fault ourselves, we shame ourselves, we doubt ourselves, or we might blame others, when ultimately it's taking us out of alignment, right? And those moments of the hard no or the doors are actually guiding us back to our aligned self. And if we're inflexible, that begins to jam up our life force energy, and we're in a place now where we're contending with these triggers, these emotions, these expectations, these assumptions, which basically create delays, confusion, looping, overwhelm. And that's not where we want to go. We want to go into a place where we are in alignment. We're not in control. We're not holding tight to these ideas and outcomes, right? We are literally being curious and allowing ourselves to experience what is occurring and make choices that is aligned with our true selves in those moments, right? So there are certain frequencies that exist in our environment. And when we're attuned to ourselves, especially our true self, there is a resonance. And when we're in resonance with certain things, we experience these things. And a lot of times things are out of resonance because we're working through something, which is the fear-based beliefs, which is the systems that have been held us in captivity for a really long time, and we're moving away from them. So it can feel a little bit feel challenging, right? And yet this is the part where we want to embrace challenges, because the challenges are sharing with us what has been in place between ourselves and that what we want, right? And because if we were to have it, we would already have it, especially by just the very nature of who we are. It's part of our world, part of our experience. However, sometimes we do have to have some kind of experience and a level of consciousness to attain those pieces. And it's not something you have to work at. It's something you feel into. So alignment is really important here, because our energy, when aligned, creates this free-flowing, this ease, this effortlessness that leads us to exactly where we need to be. And if we're open and curious, that flexibility guides us into the part of where we're really supposed to go, right? So if you're in a place that feels like you're pushing upstream instead of flowing with the river, going downstream, then this is for you, because ultimately what we're doing is learning to be flexible and learning to let our will take the back seat and literally be guided through the feelings, through the sensations in our body, into where our higher self and our soul begins to assume us. Okay, so let's go into what is the inflexibility. So what happens is we feel not safe. We feel like this is the way. We feel like I can't lose this. I feel like I need certainty before I move on forward. And you might feel like if I relax, everything will fall apart. Now, this is really important, because all of these kind of comments that might run through your head is usually part of yourself that developed to survive. And this part thinks, hey, I got to make this happen because I can't trust life to hold me. So then it grips onto things, it manages, it strategizes, it has to get it right. But the thing about will is it's almost always rooted in fear. And even if the goal is beautiful, like I would love to have this beautiful house, right? And house all my family and friends and share with them this beautiful space. But simultaneously, if you kind of pick it apart and look at where it might be created in fear, it's like, well, my family, I need to prove to my family that I made it, or I need to prove to others that, I'm successful, or I need to make sure my family is well taken care of because I don't think they can take care of themselves. So I need to have a place for them, right? These desires can be noble, but if there's a inkling of the reason of fear, that fear is the baseline of why it's created, then you are moving towards something that is not from your true self. It's from this idea of the world that said you have to prove yourself, you have to be successful, you have to have a big fat house to say that you've made it, and that is not going to work, right? So if these things that we desire don't happen, guess what? Inside of ourselves, we think, well, then I'm not going to be okay. That's inflexibility, right? So I want you to be aware of that, because ultimately, we are all driven by fear-based beliefs. And if you don't see it, then before you take a leap and start acting upon something, really take time for yourself, be with yourself and go, is this coming from love or is this coming from fear? Am I doing this because of these old beliefs that I have to make it, or I'm not going to survive, or people are going to look at me poorly and they're not going to think I'm successful? Because literally what is meant for you is always going to come to you. It's just now a matter of braiding the will with the divine will in order to bring it together. So let's braid that divine will, right? So flexibility is basically a place where you're not abandoning yourself. You're not lowering your standards. You're not tolerating what's not aligned. You're not letting people cross your boundaries. And you're not going to be this easygoing person in order to avoid conflict. That is not flexibility, okay? That's basically self-abandonment disguised as spirituality. No, we don't want that at all. So we want to be in a place where we're in this flexible, energetic state. And flexibility says you can move with your truth when you hear it, because it's aligned. It reverberates throughout your whole entire body without needing to control things, because you now know. And if you watched last week's talk about knowingness, it's like we're really working on helping you know yourself, helping you know with a capital K the truth of where you are and where you're supposed to be. So with the flexibility, you can respond without reacting. You can adjust without collapsing. You can release the attachment without holding on and losing the idea of devotion of what you're headed towards. This kind of flexibility is strength, and it's not weakness. It is truly a place where you're allowing yourself to go, I'm going to follow a different way, which actually leads me to where I'm really supposed to be, which is where the divine will comes into play. So before we go into clearing, I want to explain the difference between your will and the divine will. Your will tends to be specific about the form of how it manifests, right? It's like, I want this type of relationship, whereas, say, divine will says, I want you in love, truth, safety, and alignment. And that is, it doesn't have to look like a specific person. It's like, this is the way. Where your will say often, I need this house, this job, this timeline, because this is how it's going to serve me and support me. Whereas divine will says, I need you on your path. This is the one where you'll become who you are and who you came to be. Like, that's important, right? Because the will tries to control the outcomes, whereas divine will orchestrates the evolution of your growth, which is not only supportive of you, but supportive of the whole collective. And trust me, like, as we as a collective recognize these pieces, we all get informed energetically, and we all begin to be in alignment and then recreate the whole energetic field. So let's say we want the collective to move in congruency with divine will, okay? So divine will can only move through you when you're flexible enough to let life lead, not the environment of the systems. It's like really seeing your centeredness and the truth of where you are meant to be. And oftentimes we want to connect the dots of who we've been and who we are, not on that fear-based level, but where our passion is, where our joy is, where our peace is, because in those places and spaces have been the breadcrumbs. And that's where Isaac and I created the values workbook, because when you understand your values, you are connected to your true self. And from that, you are beginning to choose from what you value most, which then allows for that flexibility and the things that to come in for you to receive. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at one more thing, the real cost of inflexibility, because it's there. Right? Valerie says, so needed to hear this. Last night, the fear-based beliefs were eating me up alive and I couldn't use my voice. Oh, beautiful. I'm so glad that you're here, right? Because it's loud right now. It is so loud. It's ridiculous because the collective consciousness is really in our field right now. And everyone is talking, especially because there's a lot going on in the world with so much fear, in the form of the ICE, in the form of the politics, in the form of violence, in the form of wars, in the form of so many things. And basically, when we tap in, like you tune into that frequency, you begin to freak the fuck out. We can't hear ourselves and our divine will, because that's nothing we can control. There's a lot of moving parts in a way where the collective who is attuned to that is feeding that. And what we want to do is feed the true self, our divine will, which is like these small, these pathways that are steering through the collective consciousness right now. And when we steer through it and we move through it, we actually pierce the veil and access the fifth dimension, which is all unconditional love, which is all unity. And we begin to anchor it into our bodies, right? And then when we anchor it into our bodies and we remain neutral, knowing like we're not bypassing anything, we're not saying it's not real, it is happening in the world somewhere, someplace, all of these things. However, we can be the beacon of light and allow ourselves to navigate through that noise, the will that is the collective will, and connect to our divine will and find new pathways that then anchor in the stronger energy of the unity, of love, of peace, that brings in more of that, right? Because ultimately we're all a part of the creation process, and you can create out of fear, which begets more fear, or you can create from truth, you can create from love, you can create from peace. However, we are learning to be that first, right? I was just talking to my client and shared with her the notion of be, do, have. And the most of humans have it the other way around. First they go, I'm going to do this, then I will have that, and then I will be that. Now, if you're doing from fear, and you create from fear, like what I was telling you earlier, then you're going to just create more of the same, which then will leave you unfulfilled and empty, because what you're doing is attempting to gain that beingness when you can be that already, no matter what you have or don't have. Like, you are inherently worthy, and no matter what form you're in, whatever environment, we are all worthy. And from that, when we create from that place of the beingness, then the be, do, have, you be from that spot first, and you do from there, and you will have everything and more, because ultimately that pierces through the veil, right? So I'm going to go to the Akashic records and really look at what creates this inflexibility and support us right now that's blocking each and every one of us, especially those of you in this container right now. So is there something in the clear around flexibility? Okay, where is it? Soul energy programming. Let's see what's coming up for us here. The pre-programming, of course. Hello. That's just what I was talking about. Is, we all have been born onto this field of fear, energetic field of fear, And we were all programmed, especially our parents, their parents, all our ancestors, to behave and be a particular way within this structure, within the system. And when we are accustomed to this system, of course, we don't think outside the box, because ultimately it's like, okay, we have to follow these rules. This is the way we have to be. This is the way we have to show up in order to belong, to fit in, to abide by the rules. Later in life, when we begin to get older, we're like, wait, why are we doing this? It doesn't make any sense. And so now, which is really awesome, we're starting to learn why in the world that we are doing certain things. And guess what? Most of it came from just a freaking thought, right? Someone thought this idea would be a great idea, whether it is from power, control, greed, or whatever, which then they implemented, multiple people followed along, and then we made it rule, or we made it law. And so now we live within the civilization, which is created from a lot of fear. And there is a lot of good here. I'm not going to lie. There's amazing things. And those have been created from people that have followed their true selves, that followed the divine will, that said these things will support and make so much more better. And it's occurring now. It's like been step by step, occurrence by occurrence, that then here in the world that we have now, we're being more conscious, we're being more aware, and it's allowing the possibilities and probabilities to come through because they were flexible. They found the loopholes, right? They found ways to work around the system at large, which now we have certain things that people advocate for that allows for our freedom, right? To allow for more peace. And there's people slowly chipping away at it, and the more people believe in those things, that will be created. And so there is simultaneously, different things being created right now, but it's not always spoken out loud. It's not always shared, right? And that's where, when we really tune into the divine will, we can hear those pieces, and we're being shown those pieces, and then we follow that radio frequency. And then it's like we are literally led into a whole different world where, in my world, thank goodness, like I have such kind, loving people. Like I don't encounter a lot of violence. I see it on the TV, but that's not my world, right? There's a different way that's here, and it is a frequency. And that frequency, sometimes when, you're on this path, you begin to see like, oh, when you shift your frequency, like you are literally invisible to others that are in more of the spaces and places that produce those more lower vibe frequencies, right? And it's not that they're good, bad, right, or wrong. It's just that they have attuned themselves, they've resonated there, and they stay there because they're inflexible, and they don't allow themselves to be curious to question what might be true and might be possible, right? So we want to clear this energy of pre-programming so that a lot of us can be more aware of where these fear-based beliefs are hiding, because it can be in the way you speak. It's the unconscious parts of us that we haven't yet seen, which is so powerful because it still creates no matter what, right? We're still in agreement to this collective energy, which is creating the violence, which is creating the wars in a way that doesn't allow us to see how we've agreed to that, why we need maybe safety. So we think war is an answer, right? But we don't know where it is until we find it within ourselves. And I'm not saying you overtly create it. It's just, again, we've been born in the field, which then we believe that we need to protect ourselves from foreigners, from outside forces, which oftentimes creates a separation in each and every one of us, right? So hopefully with this wonderful clearing, you'll begin to start to see those things, because then when you do and you acknowledge those pieces, we begin to create new agreements, redefine belief systems. All right. It's cleared, accurate, complete, 100%. What percent is running us? This is 100%. So this is going to be like the allowance, right? We are allowing ourselves to see past the programming and begin to question things, and allow ourselves to begin to be led by the love, peace, and joy, and freedom. All right. Is there something else that is creating the blocking the flexibility. We are going to chart 27. This is a higher spiritual chart. And what we're looking at, this part is called Learning is Fun. So intention is growth. This is powerful because the intention that we set really sets us on the path of the frequency, right? To braid our will with divine will. And if your intention is for evolution, if your intention is for growth, if your intention is to be aligned with your divine will, you're going to start to move in that direction, right? Because you're letting yourself be attuned to that frequency, which then allows you to see that part of your life, right? And whatever comes into place during that time, you don't have to go digging for your traumas. It will show up. It'll show up as ways that challenge your belief in divine will, your belief in truth, your belief in love or freedom or peace. And it's not going to like debilitate you unless it needs to. Some people need to get their ass kicked, right? I got my ass handed to me last year. And because of that, I am so much more awakened and aware that I'm like, okay, I don't need to learn through pain and suffering in that way anymore. I'm ready to learn through alignment, right? And so now I am questioning and I am bending and I am flexible so I can really tune in to what is more in alignment with my soul. Okay, so the intention equals growth. So anything that blocks that, let's go ahead and clear that now. Please clear and release on all levels, layers. And go ahead and drop in the comments, I'm ready for growth. And growth, which is a beautiful thing, can happen just like that. And some need to acclimate because, again, depending on where you are in your life and your experiences, sometimes we have that huge wake-up call and things kind of start to fall apart so that the new can come in. Because one of the biggest things I've learned is the new does come at the cost of the old. Like, our lives are at capacity for so much right now. I can barely stand like all the things that I have to do in a single day. And I'm sure you guys feel that too. And with that, we have so much responsibilities that then when we attend to all these things, we're not very focused and intentional because we're just trying to manage all these things. So we want to begin to see where we're giving our energy to those fear-based beliefs and move into the other direction. Okay, cleared, accurate, complete. Awesome. Is there something else we need to clear around flexibility? How about inflexibility? I want to get the opposite end because many of us are inflexible. Where do we need to clear around inflexibility? And that's 9B. And this is health and well-being. What we want to look at is constructive thoughts. Now, our mind has, probably, I don't know, 1 million thoughts per second. Who knows? I know that there's an actual number. But ultimately, Penny, hi, I'm so happy you're here. I'm so glad you're ready for growth. We are all ready for growth, and it's so exciting. Yes, you too, Michelle. Yes, I'm growing and ready for more growth. Beautiful. So, constructive thoughts, right? What happens when you start to doubt yourself, right? When you start to doubt yourself, that little doubt begins to creep in, and then this whole story of why you should doubt yourself, why you probably have no confidence, why you probably look ugly, why you probably look fat, why you probably aren't listened to or heard, starts to churn, right? And if you follow that thought, it'll take you down a rabbit hole and can lead you to shame and self-punishment, and then you're stuck in your house and you're wallowing in this self-pity. I know, because it happens to me. Like, I know this pattern, right? However, when you can notice that you feel like doubtful, What happens when you do the practice, and students of mine know the practice, you begin to question, like, do I believe this 100% true, that this is true, that, I need to doubt myself right now, that I don't believe in myself? No is the answer. And then you go, where did I get this from? Who does this belong to? How is this for me? And when that happens, you get the mind out of the way, because now you're not following that thought. You're allowing yourself to be with the energy. And guess what? The energy, the sensations are in the now. They're not from the past. They're here. They're like happening, right? And so when you tune into your body and feel those sensations, you're allowing yourself to repattern the energy in your body. And when you're repatterning the energy in the body, the life force energy can move through more clearly, which allows you to then navigate from a higher frequency, because we're not stuck in the low frequency of thoughts. We are now constructively following a new path, which then allows us to see the beliefs that are held at the core and redefine them. And so from that, we are then able to think constructively, which then you're able to access the executive function of your prefrontal cortex, which actually they didn't find this until, I don't know, decades ago, or I forget. But anyway, it's like the prefrontal cortex has the executive function to strategize, to think clearly, right? Because it's not in survival mode, in the past, in the fear, like the amygdala, which is like the reptilian brain. It's like, oh, I see an opportunity. I see a possibility. I can see how I can, constructively see something that is beyond what my fear-based beliefs are. And so with that, we can then create from creativity. We can create from curiosity, or create from love, which then produces something way more. That's where 1 + 1 can equal 3, because when you're on that trajectory and those constructive ways of seeing things, and envisioning things, you create more instead of less, right? When you're creating from that fear, you're creating less. You're creating the fear, which then produces more fear. All right, let's go ahead and clear anything that blocks us from being able to access the prefrontal cortex and get into the executive function, where it is connected to the divine will that says, hey, I can learn and play here instead of be so serious and this has to be this way, because that's, again, fear. Cleared, accurate, complete. All right, is there another thing to clear around inflexibility? No. So do any of you have any questions about this right now? Because ultimately, the will cannot lead you into the unknown. The will only knows how to operate within the known. And guess what? The unknown is the divine will's understanding. And when we are in the unknown, that's where expansion happens. The unknown is where miracles can take place, because it doesn't look like what we know and see. It can feel like a detour. It can feel like a reroute. It can feel like an ending that you didn't plan, or even an opportunity that you didn't expect, or even realizations that change your identity, because you can't go back, right? Divine will is showing you the truth. Divine will is providing you the different forms that you can shipshape into, because you're ultimately always changing. I mean, that's the one constant thing that's always occurring, is change. And if we're not flexible to that, or inflexible, then we kind of stay the same, right? We kind of plateau, and then we get into this mundane habit and feeling that, this is the way life is, and that is not like that. We want to be in our divine will. And so how do you know the difference between your personal will and divine will? And when you're inflexible, you can feel like everything's rushed. You can feel mentally obsessed. You can feel like you have to figure out what this is. You can feel anxiety. You can feel defensive, especially when things don't comply. And it is heavy, right? And we are all unconsciously doing this in different areas, where you're not intentional. So when you're in divine will, guess what? You feel open, you feel guided, you feel steady, you feel intuitive, you're present, and you feel like you have all the support even though there's a lot of uncertainty. And it doesn't mean that everything's easy, because we've been pre-programmed and orientated to a particular way. So we could be hitting up against the cap, right? The roof of our own ceiling of what we thought and believed to be true. And it can feel fearful, but that's a different kind of fear, right? That fear is going into the unknown. And so with that, it's like you're not fighting this. You will still have emotions, you will still have the fear, but you're not building your life from fear anymore. You're literally learning to cooperate, not micromanage. So type in cooperation if you feel me here. So when you cooperate with your divine will, guess what happens? It's you attune to that frequency, and now you're harmonizing, right? And so when you harmonize, you're literally harmonizing in that present moment that allows you to experience the changes that are happening. And then you have that inner knowingness, and you begin to see that the truth of why things are occurring, because you're not just operating from the small level of the mind, you're operating now from the bigger picture. And you can see what you might have been protecting yourself from, what you're trying to prevent yourself from, and you're now allowing, and then the allowance allows for more of what you want to come in, because then you're open, you're receiving it, right? And so with this, you want to give yourself an opportunity to, again, attune to your body. And you can tell when things are pulling you out of alignment, because it feels tight, constrictive. And when you're flexible, you're open and curious, and you won't lose things. The only things you'll lose are the things that are no longer meant for your life. And with that, when you open, you're going to just get more of who you are and what you prefer. And when you trust in that, which is where I am right now, is the trust of that, then you're literally guided on that pathway. And the interesting thing is, for me, I've been having some of these beautiful experiences where I'm offered these amazing opportunities, and yet there's been stalls. And instead of getting like angry or upset or inflexible, I'm like, okay, because it's not the right time, and or it might be a protection that says this isn't the way. And I'm trusting in that, right? I don't go into the anger that then brings on more anger, and then it reverberates, and then I tell other people, and then it passes on the anger, right? I'm in a place where I'm dissolving it within inside of me first. Whatever anger or sadness or fear that comes up, I dissolve it through the practice, which then allows more of me to be able to access the present moment. So flexibility is not giving up. It's not surrendering your dreams, your heart, your mind. It's just allowing yourself to be led by something higher, which is your divine will, the true self. And with that, your will wants the certainty, but there is no certain outcomes. However, there is not this plan that's there for you. You get to choose and act in accordance with your higher self if you so choose. So you just got to tune into that radio frequency. And so when you do, you go into the allowance that divine will guide you, and you'll begin to notice the shifts. It's really powerful. And with that, you will be led to the right people, the right places, the right spaces that are calling you towards it, because that's where your next lesson is. That's where your growth is, your evolution. So I'm really, really excited for this, because I'm ready for my divine will to really braid in with my personal will, because I'm a stubborn lady. And I'm ready to follow the lead and tune in to that right frequency. So I'm going to go ahead and do a mop-up, and I'm just going to check to see if there's any questions here. Michelle says, the amygdala is so tiny, but mighty control of nervous system. Yes. Quick on switch, but not off. Yes. Quick on switch. That's for sure. Now we're evolving a quicker off switch. Yes. Carrie Lee says, how do you allow divine will to be in the forefront over the will? Well, I don't know if you came on to the beginning, but it's like really being attuned to it, right? when you notice the fear-based beliefs that are acting from survival, that are acting in the fear, that is where the personal will is. And to have divine will in the forefront, it's the complete knowingness, the capital K, know. You know without a shadow of a doubt that this is the way, where you're being led somewhere that is completely unknown and uncertain to you. Now, it doesn't happen where you're just thrown into the deep end. It's steps of acclimation, because you're starting to learn like certain things that you've been pre-programmed with, whether it be, bad relationships, or enduring a job that you are tolerating, or even, tolerating people around you and how they treat you. You begin to go, I know that I need to turn into myself and, maybe not date that person anymore, or maybe look for another job that fulfills me, or even maybe not talk to the family members that are always so consuming of my energy, and just give myself a break, give myself some time to then hear my true self in order to move in that direction. Because the divine will, again, will feel so open, will feel so centered, and in that knowingness, it brings you to your most right and perfect place. And I tell you, Carrie, I have been led by my fear-based beliefs for a very long time. And with that, I'm being more hyper aware of where that still runs my life, in the form of, money, in the form of, what I got to achieve, in the form of, some of my relationships. And with that, I'm starting to notice the small nuances that are bringing me into more love-based beliefs. And you just got to sit down with yourself and really tune in, because a lot of times we are in that will, which controls everything. And if you're in the control of everything because it has to look a certain way, or because you're trying to survive, then you're already caught in the will. So re-listen to this. Let me know what if there is any other questions aside from that, and I'm really excited for you to just attune yourself, right? Attune to the love instead of the fear, and let me know how it goes for you. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do a mop up, and that just kind of clears up energy, ties up any loose ends. Thank you, Heavenly Father, Mother Earth, guides, guardian angels, for your love and support at this time, especially for allowing us to braid the divine will with the conscious will. And as we do that, we begin to dissolve so many layers of fear-based beliefs and pre-programming that brings us to a place of creation, brings us to a place of power, peace, love, and joy, and freedom. And through that, we begin to assume that divine will, or allow our divine will to assume us and take the lead, not in a place of letting go of our desires and wants and needs, but in a place that we're knowing that our true self already knows those things and always takes care of us in ways that our personal will doesn't know. And so let this part of us take us into the unknown, where everything that we do desire does exist. Help us to release the grip and the control, and become flexible enough to see things clearly and act from that place and that higher frequency. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Amen. Aho. May it be so. Yay! Thank you so much for joining me today. Invite your friends. I'm always here on Fridays, and sometimes I'm late because I'm kind of bustling about, but I will be here, I promise. And thank you for being here with me too. I'm going to finish off this song called Right Now by Vandalux. Thank you so much, and have a powerful, beautiful weekend, and remain flexible. Here we go. If you felt a shift today, this is just the beginning. Join us inside New Paradigm Healing Academy to go deeper into clearing, energy work, and soul remembrance. Subscribe, like, and share this with someone ready to release the old and embody the new. Together, we rise in frequency across all timelines.